Right, and welcome to another episode of Pop Culture POV, Point of View. Hello. The moment and the time has come for me to speak on Jennifer Lopez. I'm always known as somebody who really enjoys her work. It's always about her fortitude, her ambition. I believe that JLo has been put in situations where most people would assume she would just, not necessarily nail the experience, you know what I mean? Like win. And she has this thing where I feel like she understands the concept that life is short and you just got to keep trying everything. I believe there's certain career things that she's done, that she's tried, and whether they were the most successful thing or they were things she needs to work on, she gave that effort. And I think it's something that we all run into. Like I guess I could speak for myself. Like I'll run into these moments where I'm like, Ronnie, why do you put certain restrictions in front of you? You know, whether you're the best at this and you're not the best at that, why shouldn't you be trying to win? And I think that's why I get personally why I get such a big JLo. Why I have so much support for her. And she just moves me, you know what I mean? Like, I'm when I hear I'm feeling so good, that feels great. You know, when I see her visuals from the music videos, that feels great. You know, it's that kind of a thing. But I think about the times where, when you're doing something creative, you decide that this is what I can do. You know, like for instance, I always feel comfortable in front of radio and television hosting to a degree because that's what I've done for so many years. But then I never, even though this is what I wanted to do since I was a kid, I never think that like, wait a minute, how did you feel when you first started, when you weren't as good as you worked up to? Like, what was that feeling? And the funniest thing is I mentioned before many a times on the platforms, RandomlyRJ.com or the Patreon, that like, I want to move forward into more levels of learning to act and really like learn that expression, whether it be something that's big or not. It's something that it sort of speaks to me, especially at this stage and this age and where my career has went. I always look at like sort of being chicken shit because I would take improv classes, and I took about 3 improv classes at Improv Olympic, and one was at Groundlings, just like a workshop. But the point is, I always felt very comfortable in that because I was like, okay, radio, the next transition would be improv, but I never really had to commit to it. And something about like, why didn't I commit to it? Was I nervous? Would JLo be nervous? Whether she'd be good at something, she's still going to try. And I always look at that. I'm like, why, when I was doing radio, would I continue to flourish in that industry, but never cross over and say, damn it, I own, and I deserve to be really great in improv. And then the next level, be really great at acting, And so, obviously, this particular episode is going to be about JLo and her love life, but I did want to kind of explain what makes me feel really connected to her. It's more so her continuous ambition. Now, let's talk about ambition in the way of love. I make the mention that she has the fortitude to keep going. That's kind of the through line with how I feel about her being such a badass. I feel like there's not a lot of challenges that come across her plate that she says, oh, we can't do it. She just like tries to find a way to make it work. And again, I'm being honest with JLo's career. Not everything does work, but she keeps on going. And I don't know, it's so easy, let me tell you. It's so easy to be on the sidelines and be like, oh, well, okay, well, what the fuck are you doing? You know what I mean? Like, what are you, why aren't you trying to open up, your own artistry? Like, why isn't that a big deal to you? So anyways, and by the way, she kicks ass in a lot of shit she does. I love her for that. But my through line with that is that it'd be easier to be like more content and, sort of, that, she had all these different journeys as far as her love life and kind of be embarrassed and shy and bashful. I don't think that when she set out to do what she was trying to do, I don't think she felt good that people started comparing her to like, oh, she's almost like a modern day, in terms of relationship. Elizabeth Taylor, like somebody who just gets married and engaged all the time. That's not what she wanted. But then I think we sometimes got to think about the big picture. Well, what's the alternative? You go ahead, you give your all to Mark Anthony, you have the kids with him, and it doesn't work. What are you supposed to just be an old maid after that? And I'm not calling anyone single an old maid. I'm not calling anyone old an old maid. I'm very much over 40 years old and I'm single and I love everything about me. So I'm not necessarily knocking the having somebody to love defines you. What I'm more so saying is that too many times people will give up on trying again because they failed one time, and JLo does not do that. So that brings us to this moment about this big story of 2021, JLo and Ben Affleck back together, and just kind of how I feel about it. I will first start by saying, I was talking to my good friend Sahai about this, who also loves JLo. The first thing she says is, she goes, "Do you think this is long term?" And I was like, I don't know. In my mind, in my heart of hearts, it's always JLo returning with Mark Anthony. Like, that always seems like just the most connecting situation, and right time, wrong place, whatever. I don't know. And not to make light of anything, but Mark Anthony is no laughing matter. Many will say, Mark Anthony, JLo might be the light work on his resume. All jokes aside, of course, you know what I'm saying. Mark Anthony is the GOAT. He has such an infectious, commanding energy. I'm not going to speak nasty, but, he probably can rock it in the bedroom. I mean, we know this. So for me, to the question about Ben Affleck, it's like, to me, JLo, Ben Affleck, I'm happy that it's a happy moment and the relationship has been for some time. But this particular pop culture POV point of view is going to be about assessing why it works and why it should work, or why maybe it won't work. Again, now that I prefaced it, and I almost lost my train of thought because I get so excited about talking about Jennifer Lopez and Mark Anthony. Specifically, I remember being at the Staples Center and Mark Anthony and JLo were performing together. It's when they went on tour together. This was like as they were getting together, or right before, during that whole mix of it all. They did not even have kids at the time. And I guess when you are in a location, this was Staples Center in downtown Los Angeles, when you are in a location and you see JLo and Mark sing to each other, whether you want to knock JLo's voice, screw you if you do, but whether you want to knock her voice or not, like, there's just such magic. So I always am like gonna be, and I'm not the only one, by the way, I'm always gonna be pro JLo, Mark Anthony. But why do I keep going off train of thought? You could tell where my viewpoint is as a huge Jennifer Lopez fan, where I want her to go. But in regards to what I think about Ben Affleck, to what I was telling you, my friend Sahai says, "Do you think this is long term?" I think that it's great, and I think that sometimes in life you revisit certain situations. It kind of takes you back to a certain time. The one thing about JLo is she sort of had to cultivate a career. I don't believe it's there are too many times in this industry where based on who you are is where people want to put you, and there's no real knowledge to know where her career would have went if she didn't pivot as many times as she did. So with Ben Affleck, I think what's interesting is, I'm not by any means saying that she sort of was with Diddy when the music needed to be the music. She was with Ben Affleck when she needed to do blockbuster movies. She was with Mark Anthony when she wanted to release a Spanish album. That is not what I'm saying. But I am saying that sometimes in life you have to cultivate different things based on where you're building up your life. It's a much different experience when you're building up your life than when you're set and you're comfortable. And I believe that is why A-Rod was good for her, because it was more, her career is already built. It is where it's going to go. So now she could almost look and open her heart to love in the way that makes sense to her. And there might be this thing, and I think we all have these moments where, if you track back, there are certain relationships, and Ben Affleck was so good for her at that time, vice versa, they were good for each other, that possible nostalgia could just feel so infectious to her. In terms of what I think of them together, I hope they're happy. I don't know that I always strike him as the most charismatic, and for me, I always feel like JLo needs somebody so charismatic, hence why I love Mark Anthony, because he's always going to charm the pants off somebody, because he's so cute, you know? I'm surprised people don't say he's cute, because he's damn cute. Like, I don't know why. If you're missing the boat, you're missing the boat, but that is what I say. Mark Anthony, you know, he's the GOAT. He's one of the great ones of our time. Gosh, every time I talk about Mark Anthony, I get excited about the Mark Anthony JLo moments. But as I try to talk about Ben Affleck, one of two things. I would always hope for JLo to be with someone more charismatic. But then I'm tracking back to the last time I seen her in concert. It was at Madison Square Garden. It was a double show because the first show was Saturday, and the lights went out. There was a blackout in New York City, and then it came back on Monday. And maybe, just maybe, JLo being such a presence, I mean, anyone who could command Madison Square Garden, you know, is a presence. And she has a point of view. She has a strong mind. She knows what she wants. Not that Ben Affleck doesn't have that either, but maybe his more subdued personality makes sense. But again, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he doesn't have that. You know, we're only given what we're given. You know, I always find it funny with these relationships, and it's like, we don't know specifically who connects with who. We don't know who, just because we see one of the talents being more vibrant, that person might, you know, behind the scenes might be a little more quiet and chill. JLo may give all her energy at the show, and then after that she might be really calm, and so she really looks to like a Ben Affleck for for Ben Affleck's calmness and funny energy. I'm just speaking for me. I'm glad they are happy. I hope this works for a very long time. It just opens up that question, like, you know, if you tried it once and it didn't work, will you go back and try it again? But with JLo, it's never really an issue because she always is going to try. That's sort of what I open up this conversation with. Like, JLo is always gonna, you know, rather than get down on her luck and think, oh, I have 2 kids, you know, she's alluded to that being a really dark time for her. That's when she wrote the book Dance Again. Dance Again was the HBO show and a song, of course, but she talks about that being a moment where it's like, oh, I can't keep going, I can't go on, but she has to show up for her kids, she has to try again, she has to dance again. So I guess what I'm saying is, if you're asking me if Ben Affleck and JLo is the best fit, maybe it's the best fit for right now. How about that? Maybe it's the best fit for today, the right here, the right now. And knowing that she's always going to dust herself off, you know, get back in those stilettos and rock it kind of burdens no real risk, you know, to be with him. He probably makes her happy. He probably takes her back to a time. You know, Ben Affleck was, I mean, hugely famous at this time, and she was still sort of, I mean, she wasn't not JLo, but she wasn't the JLo of today. So maybe there is a warmth within that, you know. And I want to be fair too, because if anyone is checking out this particular podcast and are more of a Ben Affleck fan, forgive me for not knowing all of his work and his information. I mean, I know his work, but I don't know his, you know, his personality, let's say. You know, as far as we know, he's a kick-ass, you know, Boston guy, which, you know, people from Massachusetts are typically really, really awesome people. I actually have tons of people that I enjoy from that area, but we've only seen what we've seen sort of in the headlines and, you know, whatever his struggles have been. But yeah, it's so to the question. Ben Affleck, JLo, are they here to stay? You know what? They're here to stay right now. They're in love. We love to see it. It brings us back. You know, TV shows are having reboots all damn day, every day. So why not make it a relationship reboot? That is not to say you in your life or me need to go back and revisit any old work. That's not what that's saying. It's just saying this was the right place, right time. And honestly, maybe JLo, who knows, was she vindictive towards A-Rod? Was she kind of like showcasing, like, you know, I'm not the one to mess with, you know, if he did or didn't cheat or whatever? Like, no one really knows. And the thing about people who live their life in the public eye, it's as honest and as real as it's going to be. But there's also, you know, there's some knowledge to how this appears and how this looks and how this will read, you know, on the headlines or whatever. JLo is not brilliant. She knows what she's doing, the same way she can do the halftime show and feel no worries, and this is not knocking JLo, because JLo's my queen. The only person who I get more tickled pink by is Janet, and I say that all the time. Like, Janet is the one, JLo's my queen. So, if JLo walked into any room, I'm always going to be impressed. But by the way, even though I don't have everything going for me where I want to go, the type of confidence I have, I already know JLo, if I did an interview with her, she would enjoy me. Like there's just no way she wouldn't. My confidence is at a certain level through her to know that whether you are where you need to go, you use that fortitude to get there. So that's what I like about JLo. But I guess if JLo and Janet walked in the same room, I'd probably be like, oh my God, Jenny, sorry, I got to go talk to her. Which, by the way, JLo would say the same thing. Beyond that's the way love goes. I think Bennifer has always talked very highly of Janet Jackson, in many different occasions and very different talking points, different aspects of how Janet would do her career like this and that, and she takes a big influence, and in this career and life in general, respect is the number one thing that could be your guide, and I think she has a lot of respect for Janet. But that's not what we're talking about. We're simply talking about JLo falling from grace, in the regards of what had happened with A-Rod, and then her picking herself back up, trying again, whether Ben Affleck is the right guy or not. She's just going to go with it, and she's going to... Gosh, it's so hard to convey all this, but I guess what I'm basically saying is she understands, life is short. You gotta live a little, and I just really value that. And I always gotta kind of give my own self a slap on the wrist and be like, you better get your little JLo glow, Ronnie. Step it up, because you gotta try here and now. This is what we have. And why shouldn't I be happy? And that, I think that's kind of how she relates to it too. And sadly, a lot of other people don't relate to it that way. Sadly, people are they start getting their trepidations, oh, I shouldn't really connect with Ben Affleck again because blank, blank, and blank. But nah, she marches to the beat of her own drum. Let me say that again. She marches to the beat of her own drum, and that is why she's as successful and happy as she is. I wouldn't just say successful, because I never necessarily only give credit to people who are successful, because there's a lot of really great successful people who are dark and miserable inside. And that has always been one of my striking forces as to why I like JLo, is because I never feel like she's and we don't know what she goes through, right? But I always feel like she at least is having fun doing what she's doing. And right now, she's having fun with Ben Affleck. And if there's wedding bells, that'll be exciting and amazing. And, she's always had that effect, the JLo glow. Once she rocks out with you, she's going to get Ben in order, and things will be happy. We don't know how long this relationship will go. When we revisit this in the year coming up, who knows where JLo will end up. But right now, it's Ben Affleck. She seems to be happy. And we, as JLo super fans, are also very happy. So that was my little evaluation and review on Jennifer Lopez and her dating life, and what's next for this queen that is over 50 years old. Singer at Madison Square Garden at 50 is just I track back to that moment, which was a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. As such a vibrant moment, and it's just, you want the best for talent that makes you happy. And she's a talented individual who, came from the world of dance. She continues to do it with the acting, and she does her music, and she does it her own way. It's great, and it makes me very happy. So you want your talent to be as excited as possible. And I think this is good for her, While she was with A-Rod, I says, let's go A-Rod. But the moment that didn't work, I was like, all right, bye A-Rod, we'll see you. You had your best days back in the day, But, and I'm Team JLo all the time. So now that she's with Ben, that's, it reminds me of going back to the album, This Was Me Then. Some of her best songs were from that particular particular album. So, what was the one? I'm glad that I'm making love to you. I'm glad that I'm so glad. Yeah, that to me, that whole era, JLo fans, if anything, JLo's just giving us a reboot. So I'm into it, and cheers to the union of sorts of Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck, and wherever that may go. Jenny from the block. She can't be stopped. This has been Pop Culture POV. Point of view. My name is RandomlyRJ Jr. Please go to the site, randomlyrjr.com, and also show some support. Patreon.com/randomlyrjr. I always state that this was not anything that I jumped on a broadcast in terms of like, I just want to do what everyone's doing because Twitter is the way to make a name. No. I come from the world of radio back in the early 2000s, you know, working at Clear Channel in Los Angeles in like 2001 and 2, and I've worked on the air many different stations. It's hard to compete with the newer landscape, I gotta tell you. So the fact that you're even listening and checking this out, it's why I do say go to the Patreon and show some love. Because I just do it differently, you know? Where else are you gonna get a full breakdown about JLo and Ben Affleck and it not be some shady, oh gosh, JLo is dating Ben Affleck and meh. Okay. All right, you need a hug. This is Team Jenny all day, every day. Jenny Low. Anyways, Pop Culture POV, RandomlyRJ Jr. Support the Patreon, and we'll be back with more episodes. Boom and boom. Good night or good morning.